Hello and welcome. My name is Alan, and we are back here today with more for Spooktober 2024. This video is one, well, let's watch a bit of the actual footage first. Yeah. There is no sound, so don't feel bad if you're not hearing anything. All it is this young lady in the elevator. She was hitting all the buttons. You could see them lit up. Elevator's not closing. She steps out. She's still kind of like she's expecting something. Steps back out to the side. So yeah, this is old elevator footage released by, I believe, the LAPD from the Cecil Hotel. It's now a different name, but yeah. This is elevator footage. And one of the last videos we see of Canadian Elisa Lam. This story is so weird. It baffles me. Look at the bizarre hand movements. I've seen so many little documentaries or videos about this disappearance because I am a fan of the spooky and stuff. I was a big fan of Shane and Ryan on Unsolved and big fan of them on the Watchers. So their video of Elisa Lam was the first one that brought this attention to me of the incident. But I've seen other videos since, but much of it is the same. You have the elevator footage, and then you have some of the facts of the case. Door closes. But yeah. And it opens again. I guess where she pressed all the buttons, it held it in place. But I don't think we see Elisa anymore. No, that's it. So we'll go ahead and pause it there. Before we go any further, this is from Dennis Romero on his channel, so give him a like, sub. So yeah. Anyway, the Elisa Lam story. Young Canadian student, and yeah, this story has been gone over numerous times. Netflix apparently has a thing out about it. 2021 crime scene cuts through the paranormal for the true story. Yeah. I don't see it so much as paranormal, it's just weird. What did we have going on? The body of Elisa Lam, also known by her Cantonese name Lam Hoyi, was born in 1991 and died in February of 2013. So yeah, she 1991, 2001 to 2011. So she was what, 22? Well, 21, I guess technically, when she passed. But Canadian student from the University of British Columbia in Vancouver. Her death at the Cecil Hotel. Like I said, it's just one of those weird things. The footage we saw was some of the last footage ever saw of Elisa. Her body would be discovered in the water tank on top of the Cecil Hotel. She had been reported missing for a while at the beginning of February, and she would be discovered on the 19th of that month. Yeah, there had been complaints about the water. It would come out dark, and they would have to let it run before it cleared. They said there was a smell to it. And of course, what we discover is she was naked in the water tanks. Yeah. Her clothes and personal effects floating in the water near her. And of course, at that point, she had been floating in that water, body just falling apart. We don't know if it was just that she had so many drugs in her system that... But again, the lid to open to even get into the water tank, they have said was heavy. And they said it was unlikely if she would have been able to do such a thing if she was so intoxicated. And often there have been paranormal aspects added to this case because it's so weird, so unusual. We know they talk about Elizabeth Short supposedly having stayed at the Cecil Hotel. If you don't know, she's famous for being the Black Dahlia. And of course, Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker, serial killer, he stayed at the Cecil Hotel. So you, of course, have many people trying to posit it's paranormal. I don't necessarily buy that. We know she had many health issues as far as mental health and everything. She was on a number of drugs to keep her evened out. But we don't know if she had an overtake, a bad cross-drug experience, the drugs interacting with each other somehow in some unusual way, or if she had stopped taking her medicine. There's so many variables. But it's just one of these, we may never know. But yeah, 2013, February. Yeah. As I've said, much has been held that it might be paranormal. Again, I don't buy that. There's so many other variables that it could have been. The fact is, we know it's a sad event. 21-year-old Canadian student who disappeared in 2013 at the Cecil. The video, which I played for you at the beginning, was filmed in a hotel elevator where she vanished, before she vanished. And it went viral when it was released by the LA police during their investigation. The elevator doors didn't close, but again, I think that's mainly where she was pressing all the buttons. It's like, but she appeared to be speaking with someone or hiding, because her actions were strange. Again, we don't know what effects an overabundance or lack of drugs may have had in her system. And when I say drugs, medicine. I'm not saying she's sitting there sniffing cocaine. You gotta remember, aspirin is a drug. Her body would be found in the water tank on the hotel's roof 19 days after she was first reported missing. Some people said the video was evidence of supernatural activity, and there are still conspiracy theories about Elisa's disappearance to this day. Yeah. Joe Berlinger says, the story has been told before, but I think it's been done very irresponsibly in the past. For the average viewer, it's another compelling story you watch and then move on to the next. But for who this happened to, it's the worst moment of their life. It's a real tragedy for that person and that family. And remember, yeah, this is a real person. There are real family members who struggled, and they tried to stay out of the spotlight. They just said, yeah, just leave us, let us try to get over this. Which I completely understand. I feel for them. But there are still so many questions of what really happened. Again, I don't think it was paranormal. The circumstantial evidence in the Elisa Lam case is compelling. The video, the similarities to the plot of the horror movie Dark Water, and even suggested links to a tuberculosis test called Lam Elisa, are all part of what's driven the conspiracy theories and ghost stories and are still popular online today. We certainly need to talk about the ghost stories and contextualize them, Joe says. It's not like you can avoid it, because that's a bigger part of the story. Those ghost stories were partly driven by the findings of web sleuths who were working to piece together Elisa's final moments at the same time as the LAPD. Several feature in this series showing the tunnel vision of people if they only focus on the coincidences and conspiracies. Let's stop there for a moment. They can be interesting. It's a wild thing to look at sometimes, in that it can just be, wow, this is crazy. But often it just is coincidence, happenstance. It's not necessarily connected. Yeah. Joe says that sometimes web sleuths can do wonderful things, but in Elisa's case, their actions were a little misguided. Yeah, there's a look at the Cecil Hotel. Like I've said, they've renovated it and changed the name and everything because of so much history, bad history that's went on there. Lisa's family don't feature other than in the archived news footage, but they knew Joe was retelling the story. I think they were wanting to move on, he says. Like I said, I understand that thought because I'm sure you suffered enough. This story is all over the internet. It's been around for years. They shouldn't have to keep going through this moment. It's like when Alex Jones and his people pushed the Sandy hoax killings as a conspiracy. No, this was a true thing that happened. It wasn't a red flag. One thing you always have to remember, real people are involved. Always keep that in the back of your mind. There's other people who are having to deal with the incident, with the feelings. And so I imagine the parents of the kids at Sandy Hook, or anyone that was killed at Sandy Hook, they've had to relive this because of Alex Jones and his supporters. And the same with the Elisa Lam story. They they keep having to see this in different spots. And honestly, I'm sure they just want to move on with their lives. They don't want the memory constantly shoved in their face because they see it somewhere. They're reminded of it somewhere. And so again, my heart goes out to them. I understand wanting to move on. Just, you're done talking about it. So yeah. If you look at the other tellings of the story, you see that she's the victim of some horrible, evil presence that took control of her. Which, yeah, those kinds of narratives, I think, are incredibly disrespectful, and probably why the family just didn't want to deal with another show that was going to exaggerate the circumstances of the tragedy. The LAPD coroner and manager of the Cecil Hotel at the time do, however, speak for the first time about what happened. So, yeah. And, of course, they're talking about a documentary on Netflix. But, getting to the point, it lends itself to a paranormal aspect just because of all the weird happenings the facts behind the case. But again, if you know the history that she had mental health problems, there's a chance she took too much medicine, stopped taking her medicine, or had a bad interaction between medicines. Any of those could have an effect on what happened, especially seeing the elevator footage. Because a person can act strangely in those situations. So again, the biggest question ends up being, okay, she gets on the roof. Getting the water tank open. To me, that's the biggest question, because they have noted before the tank itself isn't exactly an easy open, which makes getting in is difficult, but getting out impossible. So we know that once she was in, she wasn't getting out. Yeah. Before Eliza's death, the hotel already had a bad reputation. It was the place with a history of suicides, overdoses, and a place where several high-profile serial killers had stayed. It was even the inspiration for American Horror Story Hotel. So yeah. But for the then manager, before Eliza's disappearance, the place wasn't a bad place at all. There was a lot of darkness that people like to revisit, like Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker, Jack Unterweger, and of course Elisa Lam. But I mean, it wasn't awful to work there, she says. We had a great team running a business and she enjoyed it. So yeah. But yeah. So the story this is talking about is a Netflix show, The Vanishing at the Cecil Hotel. Then there's another article around the same time, 2021. So, but it'll talk about much the same. See, yeah, Netflix series Crime Scene, and the episode The Vanishing at the Cecil Hotel. Like I said, I get the feeling it was a confluence, as often is the case with many incidences, of several things coming together at once. Again, I don't think there was anything paranormal. Just sad that a young woman had to lose her life. But yeah. Like I said, I think either it was an excessive amount or a stoppage or a bad interaction between the different medicines she took. And yeah, one of the things she talks about, her roommates had talked to the hotel and they moved her to a different room. So she had already been apparently having issues. I find this one of the more interesting cases. Just because there's so much weird stuff. And yeah, I can see how many would point, oh, it has to be paranormal. But no, I don't think it was. It was just an unfortunate confluence of events that led to a sad result. But yeah, we'll go ahead and end this episode here. As always, educate thyself. Think, read, study, learn. Someone tells you something you have trouble believing, ask them to cite their sources. I'll put these links in the description box below the video. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you all in the next one. Until then, later.